Hey everybody, and welcome back to Art a la Carte. If you missed the first video in this little tiny mini series on how to draw a cute unicorn girl, I will leave a link to that at the end of this video. But this video, we're going to take it to the next step, which is giving you some tips and tricks on inking in your sketch. If you're anything like me, inking in your sketch can be frightful. It's the place where we tend to mess up. So hopefully these tips will help you out. The first thing you're going to want to look for is what type of pen do you want to use to ink? And there's a lot of different brands. The two brands that I tend to use the most are Sakura Microns or the Copic Multiliners. Another thing you're going to want to take notice is that there are different sizes, and just the smallest change in number can have the biggest effect on what that size is. They come down as tiny as I've seen 005, which is microscopic, and I do have like two of those, but they are so fine and so delicate that I tend to end up wrecking them. If you're brand new to inking in things, I think a 03 or a 02 would be about as fine as I would go, and a 01 is fun too with a little bit of practice. Now, speaking of practice, let's go ahead and talk a bit about that, because there is no quick trick to learning how to control your line. It's all about practice. It's about inking and messing up and learning your tool. Think of it as a knight who has a brand new sword. He's not going to take a new sword out into battle and fight with it for the first time. He's going to practice with it. He's going to learn the weight of it and the balance of it so he can use it so well that he doesn't have to think about it when he's in the battlefield. The same thing goes with your pen. Your pen is your proverbial sword, so get to know it. I recommend getting a scratch piece of paper and just creating some lines, some marks. Find out how thick your line can get, how thin your line can get, how smooth your pen goes. And remember, when you're inking things in, when the ink pen goes one way, that line is permanent. So sometimes you just have to learn to think outside of the art box. Don't start practicing on a sketch that you really, really love. A lot of artists will use light boxes. They'll put the sketch underneath and then ink onto a clean piece of paper. I practice on just old sketches that I didn't care about until I felt confident. But even I tend to make mistakes. In this picture alone, I made 3 or 4 different mistakes. It's not so much about how not to make mistakes, it's how to work with your mistakes. So don't get frustrated if your pen goes off the line or gets too thick in places. Just try to think, how can I fix that to make it look like I meant to do it? That's the fun of art. You'll notice at the beginning of this sketch, my line is with the 0.3, which is my favorite. And then later on, I'm going to jump into a thicker line. I recommend that when you're beginning, go with the smallest line that you want and ink in the whole thing. Then later on, after you've finished putting all those lines in, you can move on to the next step, which is thickening out your lines. Adding thicker lines is going to give it a little bit more dramatic and bold look to things, but it's a whole new thing to learn as well. But before we talk about that, a tip about erasing. Know how long it takes your ink to dry. I cannot tell you how many times I was not patient enough and I just jumped right into the erasing and my ink wasn't dry and I smudged a perfectly good inked drawing. There's nothing more frustrating than actually successfully inking in your drawing only to smudge it with erasing. So there's no set rule with that. It just depends on what type of ink pen you're using and the humidity in the air, how dry the air is. So know your dry time. Now I have the thin line placed. I'm going to go back in with my 0.5. And this is where I'm going to start thickening out some of my lines. Now I asked an artist friend of mine, how do you know which lines to thicken and which ones to keep thin? And he said, really, it's just your gut feeling. You just notice things. So here's a few things to look for in your drawing. Thick lines will be places that you want to exaggerate or bring forward. So you'll notice I put some like under her chin, bring that forward. Also think about areas that you're going to naturally want to add shadow or shading to. You might thicken that line up as well. Places that you're going to have a harsh light, maybe the sun is shining on them, you want those places to definitely remain a really thin line, if not even a broken line. Some artists will stagger their really thin line to show that the highlight is so bright that even the line art can compete. So again, Like I said, at the very beginning of this, it's all about practice, taking your time and allowing yourself to make those mistakes. Again, it really helps if you're not messing up on your really favorite drawing. But as you can see, I haven't sped up this drawing at all. There's no time lapse in this. So as you get better, you actually get really quite fast at inking in your drawings. But I will say that this is the part of my drawing where I have to have the absolute most focus. I really can't have conversations with people because, again, the line is permanent. Where I place it is where it goes. I can be fast, but I really have to pay attention. So know your work environment and how well you work. Maybe you work best with music. Maybe you work best with a movie on. Maybe, like me, you have to have it pretty quiet in places like this. While there isn't a magical spell to help you learn how to quickly learn inking in, hopefully some of these tips helped you out in your inking in process. If you have any other questions, make sure to ask me in the comment section below. And if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I post 3 new videos each week, and I would love for you to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of them. Coming up in a future video, I'm going to give you some tips on how I color this with Copic markers, so that might be something you'd be interested in watching. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me, and until next time, God bless you guys, and we'll see you in another art video. By the way, Monday's art video is going to be super awesome, so don't miss out. Bye!